Hey, Erin.
Hello, beautiful woman.
Good to see your beautiful self all the way over there in Australia.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Oh my goodness. I am like very excited to have you here on so many levels. So we can just dive right in. If you would just kind of tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So I am a mama of two. I reside in a place called the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, Australia. I am an entrepreneur. I am a lover. I am a creator. I am a multifaceted being. Which is something that I've come to love about myself, and used to think that it was wrong and that it wasn't okay that I had so many aspects of self. I am a feminine embodiment mentor. I work with women through sacred feminine embodiments and also through the sacred cycle work. So connecting deeply with our menstruation cycle, and also with the moon, and how we can work with those two powerful entities to tap into our creative energy and to live a life of freedom and flow that aligns with who we are and who we are here to be.
Ooh, yes, that is really, really good to hear. There are so many directions that I'm excited to go with this. So just to start off, like, of course, the way that synchronicity would have it, the other day I was reading this book that I just randomly found on my friend's shelf, that was all about like women and magic. And it was specifically talking about the magical properties of menstrual blood because it's peaceful blood. And it was talking about blood like being used for magic, and like how sacrifices would be made for that, but how women give this blood that is peacefully given. So I would love to hear about like what you use blood for and just like sort of the magical sacred properties of this thing we've been taught to be ashamed of.
Oh, haven't we ever? It's like the conditioning around blood is like the dirty. That's dirty. That's disgusting. And I receive a lot of that feedback, and from women too, which really surprises me. And it's just a reflection of where they're at, and that's perfectly fine. But there are deeper levels to this. And when we begin to remove that conditioning and we actually use blood as a ceremonial practice, as a ritual, what it opens is a deep level of connection to self, and this understanding that the life force energy that moves through us is available for us to tap into. It's not just like we're alive. Blood is creation. It is made up of like stem cells and protein and carbohydrates. Like, this is nourishment, and we discard it, and we put it in pads and tampons, and we chuck it in the bin. So since I have started working with these teachings and become deeper and deeper embodied in this work, I now am really sacred about my blood. I collect it in each cycle, so I free bleed most of the time. But one day out of my bleed, I will use my menstrual cup. I will collect my blood. I will sit with my blood. I will bless my blood. I will anoint myself with my blood. I've used it for masks just about every cycle in the last 4 or 5 cycles on my face. And maybe, that's why I don't look my age. I don't know, but I trust in this because the reverence I now have with my blood, it's this inner knowing now, like the first time I smelt it. And I noticed all the things that came up for me, all these stories. Oh, that's gross. ew, put it away. Like all the stories that I'd been told came up, and I chose to push past that and to deepen even more with that. And it sparked this remembrance within me. I had this vision the first time that I spent time with my blood and used it in ceremony, of being in circle with women.
Oh my God, goosebumps
How we
all
were.
over
Yeah.
my body.
Yeah. And this is how we lived, right? This is before the conformity, before the patriarchy, before the this is wrong and this is right. We innately, we all bled together under the dark moon,
Yes.
under the new moon. It's only been since recent times of fluorescent lights and technology and all the things that have changed the cycle for women. The innate cycle is to bleed with the new moon. Oh, losing my tangent. I go so deep. I'm like,
so I just want to know, and we're going to come back to all of these things. One thing I just want to say is that since I've been living out on the road and so much more in nature, my cycle has naturally come back to the new moon, which has been very exciting, considering I didn't even know, literally, I'm 31, until last year, that the new moon was the natural time for us to have our cycle. So I would love, I mean, and I just, so many goosebumps while you were talking. And I saw a photo on your Facebook page of you with menstrual blood on your face. And it was one of the most moving things I had ever seen. That was why I reached out to you. Like, and I'm going to fucking do that next cycle. And so I just like, tell me about this journey. Like, I've never met anyone who is as magically and sacredly and powerfully in it as you in this way. And I want to know how you got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Like most rock bottoms, it was with my health. I had just left my marriage of 8 years, which was a domestic violence relationship. I had taken my kids and I'd made the choice that my soul had made the choice that I could no longer live like this, that the numbing and the disconnection was completely washed over me. It was like I wasn't even here, and I didn't want that for my babies. I removed all medication, anything that didn't align with who I was from my life. And when that happened, my body and my nervous system was like, ah! And I bled for almost 2 years, every single day, whether it be spotting or heavy bleeding. Yeah. And it was, I look back now and I see the threads, and it was like, it was the shame, it was the guilt, it was all that really dense energetic stuff. It was medication, it was disconnect from the body, from the feminine. Like it was so many compiling things. And when I went to my toolbox of things that I could have helped myself with that at that time, the only thing I had was the medical system. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not going back to that. They don't get me. They don't understand me. Nothing works. It doesn't feel good. So I went on my holistic healing path. I went back to the roots that I was brought up with. My mum and my dad had lived on the land and lived the life that I feel is aligned with who I am now. And I went back to all those basic things and to hormones and, what could I do to support the natural hormone progression throughout the cycles. I just started diving really deep. Like, this can't be right. This can't be right that a woman experiences this amount of pain and discomfort and bleeding on a constant. And I just started to dive really deep. And then my soul just started to gravitate towards the energetic side of it and what I could do to promote and to cultivate in each season of my cycle more of that. And that's where the feminine embodiment came in. And I just was like, I just remembered, I was like, wow, like it felt like me for the first time ever.
Oh my gosh.
And all these boxes that I'd been put into over life, too sensitive, too much, too crazy, too this, too that. When I really looked at everything we move through in just 1 month, all of that is perfect. And all of that is within me. And I was like, I'm done. I'm done saying that that's not okay, or that I won't allow that to come through, or I won't allow myself to be that part of me, because it is all me and it is all perfect. And I think that's one of the most important pieces in this work, is that we are put into those little boxes and we are here for the full expression of life.
Yes.
Not just a little piece in this tiny little box that we're supposed to stay in.
Right. And also it's so cyclical. Like, and
Yes.
and that's what nature tries to teach us. It's not like we're always supposed to be, perfect. And as we would have been taught, clean, right? Because blood is dirty. Like, we go through all of these cycles that are all who we are.
Yeah. Like we reflect the phases of the moon. Hello.
Hello.
What is the world not seeing here? Like, seriously.
And there's like, it's amazing, right? Because I mean, you grew up in Australia, I grew up in the United States, but I feel like as far as the westernized patriarchal, like the way we were taught too, I mean, I'm guessing like you, like I was on birth control from the time I was
14.
16 to 25. And never was there any real teaching about ovulation cycles, hence not, and I mean, let alone how they link up with the moon. But it's like, if you even understand anything about your ovulation cycle, there's really only a small window when you can get pregnant.
Yeah, but that's the fear. Fear that pushes us to work towards those unaligned choices.
Yes.
Like, you will get pregnant.
Yes.
If you're not on birth control. I wasn't even having sex.
Exactly.
Was I still going to get pregnant? Oh, that's what I thought.
Right. And well, and then, I'm reading this amazing book right now called The Dance of the Dissident Daughter by Sue Monk Kidd. And it's about her journey from being a Christian woman and like a Christian writer to connection with the divine feminine. And a big theme in it that I feel like links up with, everything from putting us on birth control to making us feel like our period is disgusting and needs to be trashed and thrown away and hidden. It's like, it makes us so much easier to control when we are so disconnected from that divine feminine power source that is the female energy and that representation of the earth.
Oh, there's so much power in that. And I know within myself and the transformation that I've had in this work is the more aligned and the more embodied I am in that divine feminine essence, the more powerful I am in myself, the less I will tolerate that is not okay. The more of a stand I begin to, that I can stand in, or I have the capacity to stand in to for humanity, because it's not about me. Like, it's not really. The bigger picture is this is about taking a stand in what is natural and what is true for us, so that we can reflect that out. We can be that permission for other people to begin to choose that for themselves.
Yes.
And to begin to unravel and unveil the ways of the past that are in complete disservice of a healthy evolution, a supportive evolution for the planet and for us as humans.
Yes.
Like, it's so big. It's so big.
Well, it's symbolic. Like, that's why this ceremony and this ritual is so sacred. So tell us a little, like, tell me about what does it look like now to bleed for you? Like, because I've heard so much about, I mean, first of all, you're talking about free bleeding. I want to hear about that. I like literally tell people how you do what you do. And also, like, is there pain, because things that I've read too are like that this whole PMS and crazy cramps and a lot of this stuff is just from us being out of alignment with what our body is asking us to do during this time that we're bleeding.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's prevalent in all of the phases because it's the lead up to the bleed cycle. It's understanding that we have different capacities at different times within the cycle. So then when we come to bleed, I now feel the energetic transitions massively. Like there will be a day of transition where my energy shifts. I take time to sit with that and to feel into that because every cycle is different, but it's a similar transition. So when I come to bleed now, like premenstrual, which is our autumn phase, it used to be, you know, heightened, you know, catty, the PMS, you know, all the labeling of those things. But the archetype that supports that energy is the wild woman. And she's within us all, like allowing her to actually come through and to have a sharp tongue. Yeah, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, and it's an expression, as long as we're not projecting or, you know, anything like that. It's just an energetic expression of what we're moving through. So it now prepares me. You know, I steam before I bleed. In preparation for a pain-free, a comfortable, a beautiful experience. I get to actually take time out of my schedule each month to sit and to be with myself and allow myself to move through whatever is moving through me. And as I bleed, I intentionally let go of things from the cycle before. I reflect on what has been. I identify the things that are no longer in service of me. And I sit in ceremony, I do my blood rituals, I make a little nest, I call it my nest. So I get all my blankets in my office and I create this really soft space. I've got a bleed blanket. So if I completely want to bleed freely, I'm sitting bare butt on my bleed blanket. And I'm writing, I'm journaling, I'm listening to music, I'm moving my body, I'm literally tuning into her and what she needs in each moment. And I allow that. None of this guilt for, you know, the wounded mother archetype of, oh, I need to put everybody else's needs before myself. No, because when I give myself what I need, my cup is spewing. It is overflowing into every single area of my life. My creative energy is at its peak and my life force energy is free to move freely through me and into everything I touch.
Oh my, this is like literally one of the most, and like you are a mother, like you have children and this is what you're teaching. You know, I mean, that's like, I'm so beyond inspired. Also, just in this little moment, like I recorded, and it would have been just in the PMS cycle, the wild woman archetype, just by naming that. You just like put something in perspective and gave me permission for, like, I recorded this video that was the fiercest, most feminist, like to the goddess video that I've ever recorded, which was saying like, I'm beautiful because of the lines on my face, and was just like an ode to the mother and the crone, and like enough with us feeling like we have to, you know, spend our money on all these creams and pills and surgeries and things to make ourselves look different. And it was like wild, but just then it's like, oh my God, like I had no idea, but no wonder that's where that fire, that like wild, fierce fire was coming from.
Yeah, because it's the cycle of transformation, each bleed cycle. By the time we get to the autumn, the things that need to fall away literally powerfully get to be burned away. So the wild woman comes in with her fierce tongue and her, I'm fucking done.
Yeah, I said that in the video, like literally verbatim.
Yeah. And that's it. That's the energy of her. And I'm sorry, but I don't see anything wrong with that. That is an expression. That is perfect. That is powerfully declaring that the things that you are done with get to be left behind. You're bringing them from a thought and a feeling into the physical. And that is the permission. That is the full declaration of being done.
Okay. You are Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I mean, like, this is not a coincidence that you're coming into my life as all of these things are happening. So can you walk us through that cycle? Like what kind of, what embodies and personifies it and what that looks like for each of us who have a uterus?
Yeah, beautiful. And even the women that don't, I have transgender women in my space that fully identify as feminine energy, and I feel them and see them as that. They experience this too.
That
Women in
was
their
one of my
crone,
questions. And women who have had, I mean, hysterectomies were like a fucking, plague across Western medicine, still are. Not, and I don't mean that offensively to anyone who's had one. I just know that it's something that's like, oh, you need to have a hysterectomy. When did you really? Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes, but it's not the solution. I think people have been led to believe it's the solution. So, first phase is our spring. So when we finish bleeding, for me, that looks like steaming. I always yoni steam after I bleed. That nourishes my uterus and my womb in preparation. Like it's like the ending. It's like, okay, I'm done bleeding now. And I start to step into the goddess energy, which is the spring. I play a lot of music to really invite that. Like I have these tools and these embodiment techniques where I get to cultivate that and to build that and to invite more of that. I'm in my spring at the moment. I'm like just about to transition into my summer. Yeah.
Because we're bleeding with the new moon.
Yeah. Which is so interesting because it's come back to that way for me. I'll ask me about transitions after I speak into the phases. So when we're in our spring, it's like it's inviting creative energy. It's starting to build. Our temperature is building, so our energy starts to build as well. I notice I crave like fresher foods, whereas when I'm bleeding, I want like dense heat, soup, curries, things that make me feel really nourished in that time. I'm starting to feel like a little bit more sensual, like my sensual energy starts to rise. It's an outward energy in our spring and in our summer, whereas our autumn and our winter are inward. And we've been so conditioned to think that inward energy is like bad, and I'm struggling and I'm challenged and all the things. I don't know. There has to be polarity. What else does she invite? The goddess. You just imagine, you really sink into that goddess energy, and she's like this emerging seed. She's like, oh, I've just awakened from my winter and I'm coming back into the world. And it's this progression. I'm not in my full energy yet, and that's okay. I don't need to be fully seen or fully out there in this time and space, because my energy is still building. My body is still coming outward. And then we transition into our summer. So for those of us who bleed with the new moon, the full moon represents our ovulation time, and it also represents our highest peak, our summer. So for me, that's when my energy is the highest. That's when I'm like the masculine energy really comes in to support me during this time, because I'm very full. And it organically happens like that because I'm so aligned with these teachings now. Like if you looked at my diary, you would see just by the things that are written what each phase is.
Yes.
And what capacity I have in each phase. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course. I'm very sensual in my summer. I'm very like tapped into the light side of the mother. So the mother is the archetype for the summer. And that can look like depletion at this time, or it can look like, outward, just like fully in my essence. That's who I am as a woman. I am a nurturer. I am a space holder. Like that's when I'm at my fullest capacity. Like give me all the things that week. And then we switch into the autumn. My transition when I go into the autumn is I have a down day. When I transition from outward energy to inward energy. It feels like, for some women, and I'm so identified with it now, I don't identify it as depression, but it's like this drop.
Right.
My energy switches and it's like, whew, okay, it's inviting me to come back to self. The world has had its fill from me, and now it's time for me to come back in, to nourish, to cultivate, to start to be really aware. Is that within my capacity right now? This is when I choose normally in my autumn. My summer and my spring, I don't find that there's space to choose, because they all just flow. They flow really freely. But when I'm in my more inward phases, it's that radical responsibility of choice. Like something will come in and I'll be like, I don't actually have space for that. And be really honest with myself, opposed to, I'll just keep pushing, it's just another week until I bleed. It's like, no, because I know that that's not going to serve me. It's like this on flow into the next cycle. If I don't listen to myself and to my intuition when my energetics are inward, I see the byproduct of that in the next cycle. I don't have the capacity in places that I would or could, because I'm not listening to myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And you literally also did that. I mean, you exemplified that to me, because whenever we first had this scheduled for, you reached out and were like, I'm actually getting ready to bleed. Like, you made that choice. And I found that the message to me was in no way, shape, or form like, oh, like someone's canceling something, like how blah. It was like, wow, she's that in tune with her cycles and giving herself, that care in each part of the cycle, that like you were exemplifying that to me.
And, I am here to be an example of self-expression in this work. And if I'm not true to that, you don't get the best of me either. Like I'm here to transmit things through as I receive them and as I feel them and what is authentic to me. And if I don't stand in that, then everything I do is watered down.
Right.
And I don't want that. I want people that have the opportunity to receive these conversations, the work that I do. Like I want it at full potency.
Yes. Like this is full potency, and we're in our spring. That makes sense. I mean, not quite full, but blossoming.
Yeah.
Okay, so autumn is the wild woman, and then into winter.
Yeah, so winter is the wise woman. So she is at her most intuitive. She has space in each moment to see what is moving. She's so tapped into her being and everything that she is moving through. And I feel like she is the full permission. She is like, so many times in my life, I've been told, like I said before, too much, too sensitive, to all the things. She allows me to express anything that I'm moving through and be okay with that, for it to create space for the cycle to come. Like I understand the intention of her now, and I just allow her to come through into my being.
Dude, I feel like, this is the sacred container in which to understand ourselves. Like, it gives this perspective and this reference, rather than like, oh, I'm too much, or I'm depressed, or I'm horny, or I'm like, whatever. When you can view it and where you are in the cycle, it's like, of course, this is what I am right now. Like, you don't feel crazy or isolated or alone or nonsensical. It's like, it gives you that sacred container of meaning and connection.
Yeah. And before this work, I was still all those things, but I was all those things all the time.
Right.
Because there was no space in between.
Well, and you're afraid. Like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but I feel afraid of like, like I have to be all the things all the time, or else I'm not going to be any of them. Like every day is like, okay, I need the relaxation time and the super productive time and the this, and like, rather than like, oh, I'm naturally super productive during this time. I naturally rest and restore during this, like, instead of trying to be everything all at once.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I find so much more time opens up for me to just be, which is like what we're meant to innately. We're just meant to be.
what?
What? I know, right?
Well, and I feel like that's one of those ironic spiritual teachings that comes through of like, when you align with some, right? Because some people, and especially women who, and again, not to blame them, like everything about society at this point in time has forced all of this on us, but would watch this and be like, how am I going to have time to just sit and bleed? Like, there's no way that that's happening. And it's like this crazy, like, that's where the magic is of when you allow yourself to do this, like you somehow get more done and have more free time.
And I feel like it's the sovereignty, it's the radical responsibility for self and creating time. Like when I hear I don't have time for, I can't create, I can't, they're just limiting. They're limiting beliefs that we have been led to believe that we can't. There's nothing to say that you can't, even if you're working a 9 to 5, right? If you're working a 9 to 5 and you can't come home and you can't spend 2 hours, even 1 hour, half an hour while you're bleeding with yourself, just to actually feel what your body is experiencing and what you're moving through, then that concerns me. And I know that it is a thing. Like I know I have been there. I didn't want to create. It's not that I couldn't. I didn't want to create any time for myself because I'd have to be with myself.
Yes.
I would have to witness myself. I would have to acknowledge my current relationship with myself and my feelings. It's not an I can't, it's an I won't.
Yeah. You're nailing it, because and I don't think either of us say this from a judgmental place, because we've all been there and we all go there. But it's like, you have 30 minutes or an hour to watch Netflix or be on social media or do anything to numb yourself from having to be with yourself, or really then be able to be with others. Like, you know, if we monitored the amount of time we were spending on everything, it's not like you don't have time. It's just people are very, because it means change. When you get in touch with those things, it means change.
Which I invite so much these days. Like, come on, give me more invitation to create change. Like, where else can I go deeper in my life? Where else can I go deeper into the connections? Where else can I go deeper into my devotion? Where else can I go deeper into like observation of this magical world around me?
Oh my God, you are speaking my language. So you said, and I really want to give you space to talk about that transitory phase, because I am sure that a lot of women are going to listen to this and be like, I'm on birth control, I have an IUD, I don't bleed with the, like, this is just going to be like, what, like, so far away. And I think, I'm guessing you too at some point were that far away from where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, to me, it's like with any change, it's one simple change. Like whatever the biggest piece that is out of alignment, and if we're talking about cycles, it is the birth control, it is the IUD, it's the things that are preventing us from actually experiencing our cycle to its natural ability. And when we create change, there's always a time of transition where things are weird. We don't feel ourselves, our body's doing unusual things, but we are walking miracles, like just life itself, that we grow humans inside of us and then bring them earthside. Like, it's an absolute miracle. Your body will come back into a way of being, and that is natural to itself. And there are so many things that we can do. Like, that's why I do the immersions. It's like women need a place to be able to come and to be surrounded by women that are doing the same thing, that are trying to realign themselves with their cycle to be more in tune with themselves and their world and their creative energy and all the things. It can be hard on your own. And another really powerful piece around the sacred cycles is sisterhood.
Yes.
Is having that connection with other women and having these conversations, breaking those taboos of the past and those conditionings. Those conditionings show up in our physical as pain, like you were speaking about before, as pain, as discomfort, of all those are symptoms of disconnect to the body.
Yes.
So when we start to become more aligned with that natural way of being, when we bleed, we experience less pain. We know how to nourish and self-mother ourselves, so that pain is actually transmuted into unconditional love. Like, that's how it moves through us. And that's for a collective. That's for the collective.
Yes.
When I bleed now and I experience pain, I know that it's not mine. I still allow myself to feel it and to move it through my body and to transmute it. And however that comes through, whether that be crying or screaming or whatever needs to move through me, I am so willing to do that, because something needs to change. If there are women still not doing this work, like, I can hold some of that. I got that. And I'll keep standing in this work to be that permission and that invitation for women to lean in more, so that they can do it for themselves and their daughters and their grandmothers. Like, it goes either side, right?
Yes.
All the lines.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my. So tell us more. This is like probably why, and I really mean this, I haven't said this in any of the other videos, even if I had, but this is like one of the most life-changing conversations I've ever had. And, it was just totally synchronistic. And I mean, like, that I even found you on Facebook. I'm not even like on social media right now, and I trust everything in its timing, but it's like, here we are. So I want to know more personally, and I want anyone connecting to this video, like, what is it that you do with people? What services and containers and coaching and just everything do you offer?
Thank you. I'm just about to release a 8-week healing container. So this is a feminine embodiment. So this is for women who are feeling that call to be embodied in who they are, but don't know where to start. And there's so many layers and conditions and trauma and all the things. So that's an 8-week container one-on-one. We start to unpack that. There's also a 4-week sacred cycles immersion, which is a 3-month support, but we walk through the immersion in the first month, and the other 2 months are like the integration, because I'm so for, we can do all these things, and while we're in the energy, it's great, but then once we leave the container or the space, those teachings tend to fall away. So there has to be a time of integration, and those other 2 months are for that, where they get to continue to be in the space with women moving through it. And what I'm finding is that their cycles are changing and realigning in that time. So by the time the 3 months or the season is up, they are so much closer to being in alignment with the natural cycle than they were when they first started. Like, that in itself is just magic.
Yes.
Yeah. And I also, my business mentorship programs that I facilitate the sacred cycles is all intertwined in there, because it is all about creative energy. Like, as entrepreneurs, we are just creatives who bring through projects to support humanity. And when we're tapped into our cycle and the energies that really support us to be at our fullest capacity, like, it's magic. The alignment, the things that come in with ease and grace and flow, opposed, like, none of this pushing stuff anymore. We literally just get to show up in our authentic selves and be received by the people that really need us.
Oh,
They're my pieces.
that is perfect. And again, it makes so much sense. And I really do need to connect you and Lee Jane Woodgate. Like, again, you guys.
I messaged her.
Oh, good. Okay. Because
Yeah.
she does, like the integration of you two would just be amazing, because she, does it with all the moon cycles, right? Because it's the same thing as far as like, or just in a different way, but as far as like, when you're creating, like, here are these different phases that you go through with the moon, and it connects with exactly what you're saying, as in like a whole, you're taking it to a whole nother level that, again, I mean, I'm just ready to integrate into my life, and even just like getting on the surface of that from having this conversation with you.
Yeah. And that's why these conversations are so important. These are the transmissions that come through that women get to receive, and whatever it sparks within them to create the change for them to move closer towards that way of being that they desire is perfect.
Yes.
So perfect.
Right. And I mean, and it's, it happens in layers, and it's like just someone hearing this conversation, maybe they're not ready to totally dive into it, but maybe it's just that first little layer of like, wait, you mean it's not disgusting? Like, and you mean it's okay that I feel different ways during different, then that could actually be connected to these cycles my body goes through? Like, so
compassion for self. Woo.
Yeah.
More of that, please.
So I know you have at least one daughter. And is there like, do you have any thoughts, or I don't know if she's gotten to that point yet, or just any thoughts about, like the initiation into bleeding and the way, because like, I mean, I don't know what it was like for you, but the way that it was initiated for me was not rooted in the sacred feminine.
My mom definitely tried, but I was 15 and really was not interested in being connected to myself. I was like running away from myself at that time in life. So it was like, it didn't land the way that she intended to, but she held a circle and she had her women friends come over, and that was the initiation. They did their energetic process, and I kind of didn't want a bar of it. But it'll be similar for my daughter. So she is 12 in July, and she has started moving through the energetic phases. So I can feel her, and I witness her move through them. And we have those conversations, and she's aware of the teachings, and she has this similar materials that I share with the women for herself, to be able to reflect on. And when the time comes, it'll be a celebration. It'll be a women's circle. It'll be the women that she chooses to help celebrate with her. I've already started to speak to her about yoni steaming, and before I missed it this cycle because she was at her dad's, but when I bleed this cycle and go to steam, I'm going to invite her to share a similar experience, just so she starts to understand that this is something that she does for herself each cycle in preparation to bleed, to soften her cervix, to allow her blood to flow freely rather than stagnantly, and all the things that I am now equipped with will become her tools.
Okay, so I have never even heard of yoni steaming. So I'm gonna need just a little, please tell us
Oh my
all
God.
what that is so that we can start to look into it.
So delicious. Oh. So each premenstrual autumn, about 3 days before I bleed, I steam. So steaming is an ancient practice, and this is what we used to do before we bled. I know, right?
What?
I love being able to weave all this stuff back in. It's like, how did we get disconnected from this in the first place? Oh, that's right. We were made to think it was wrong. Okay. So it's an assortment of herbs. This I literally steamed yesterday. I used rose petals, lavender, and a nettle, which are really gentle herbs. And the way in which I use it, I have a yoni pot, which is like a ceramic pot, and I put my herbs in. I do a little ceremony and a blessing of the herbs. I thank Mama Gaia for facilitating the produce that is in my steam. Ground myself on the earth. I fill my ceramic bowl with boiling hot water, and I sit over the bowl. I wear a skirt, so all the steam is right underneath, that is directed into my yoni passage. I sit, I breathe, I listen to music. I visualize that steam coming up through my chakras, out through my crown, softening, releasing. Just allowing that to fully move through me. Oh, I it like takes me there. I'm like, and it's this beautiful like ceremony with self, an acknowledgement of this beautiful body that I'm in. I use affirmation to affirm this beautiful process that I'm taking myself through. And then when I bleed, at the end of the bleeding, hey baby, it's beautiful.
That's Lady.
Hi lady.
She came down while you were like in that moment of reverie. I just want you to know she like hopped down from her little place, was like, I'm ready to come be part of this now.
I want in on that.
Exactly.
And then when I'm finished, it's usually about 20 minutes until I feel like the steam has done its job and it's cooled down. I then take my herbs and I give blessing back to Mama Gaia. I give the herbs back to the earth. I would never recommend putting it down a drain or anything like that. Like it's in full reverence of the gift that these herbs are, and receiving the essence within my body and then giving it back to the earth, much as I do with my blood. If I am giving a ritual back to the earth or back to water, it's a similar process, like getting really reverent with what we are receiving and then what we are giving back.
Wow. Well, this has given me a lot to incorporate into my
one thing at a time.
yes. And I mean, you know, I'm on the path, like, and then there was so much new that came to me in this conversation, and I'm really excited. I'm very excited for this connection. I'm very excited for, you know, future conversations and to just share this divine feminine work and beauty and being that you are truly living. So thank you so much, Erin, for your presence. And I will be linking to everything you in the about section of this video. And I definitely hope that, you know, those that are moved by this will reach out to learn more.
Thank you, darling. Thank you for holding the space for this message to come through. So needed.
Amen. You know, we're all just here doing the work. Well, we will be in touch, and thank you again.